Hello, welcome to another episode of Daily Market Mastery with me, Christian Rauchenwald. As always, before we jump into it, let's get the usual disclaimer out of the way first. Everything that I share in this live stream / video is my personal opinion and in no way financial or professional advice of any kind. You should always do your own research, consult certified professionals, draw your own conclusions, and make your own decisions. Besides that, all the tools that I'm using, so the charting software, broker, strategy I'm following, and so on, everything is linked in the video description down below. And the one thing I recommend you check out is actually the Elliott Wave principle, which you can read online for free if or when you're following the link in the description down below. Now, with that said, we can jump right into it. Sorry for the echo. And unfortunately, my Stream Deck isn't properly working today, and the connection to OBS is not working the way it's supposed to be, which means I'll have to do the switching between the scenes manually. That's working, yeah, that's working. Jump here, okay, jump here. So it's like transitions are gonna be a little slower today. Yeah, so we're starting in the day pretty much break even. There is not a lot. Let's see if we have it here. There is not a lot, or here it's not. Okay, there's no notification. Movement so far. We can actually move directly. So everything's working here. Yeah, move directly into the Stream Deck setup. There, we don't need that anymore. Don't need that anymore. We'll have to look why it's not working later. Motive Wave is not up yet, so have to fire up Motive Wave real quick. We'll take a second. Have a sip in the meantime. I hope you all had a great start into the week. So we have our, what's it called in English, Bergfest? Today is first day. Okay, so hump day is already over, yeah. So too many days in a week to keep track. What would I do without my better half? Yeah. So the usual suspects, GameStop still moving sideways relatively steadily. We're still waiting for either the break to the top or what I expect a temporary break to the bottom to finish a corrective ABC pattern or a combinative corrective pattern. Overall, the correction, as I mentioned in every episode or in the last couple of episodes, could be finished here already with the dip that we had here, and we're going up from here. But again, it's also possible that we still get a retracement here to the 78.6 retracement level, which I consider right now more likely, but doesn't mean it has to happen. Yeah, and that's it in GameStop. We currently have this week's calls expiring on Friday, the $30 calls that we sold against our shares. There's not much premium to get right now. As we can see, I could sell calls at the lower strike price, but then if it turns out that I'm wrong and we go up sooner than I expect, then I'd actually basically be giving money back that I earned from selling the puts in the first place that got us the shares assigned. So no point in doing that. Let's move on to our other second favorite right now, Novavax. Here we'll basically have to see, as I mentioned it. So overall, I think that we finished the ABC corrective pattern here that in my opinion is wave 4 of this entire 5-wave impulse, which means I expect a breakout eventually from this deceleration channel. We bounced quite nicely on a little bit above the top of the so-called base channel, depending on if we assume wave 1 finished here or finished here. And therefore, our target area, as mentioned, would be here from around $30 or $29 to $62 almost. So we'll just have to wait and see. Obviously, if I'm wrong, we'll get a push down here most likely. And that's going to be that. But yeah, like I think our entry here to basically, I just bought one call option that expires in January, so quite some time. And I bought it around here. So yeah, like not much risk, $95 risk, but reasonable potential in case I'm right. And what do we look on next? Let's go from the top. Barnes & Noble Educational still creeping upwards slowly in relation because of the huge price differences that we have here on the chart. It doesn't look like a lot of movement, but we have to keep in mind that we actually are 100% up from this point here in June. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if this will indeed turn into a third wave pattern or if eventually we get a break to the bottom. Faraday futures. Let's see. As mentioned yesterday, during yesterday's episode, we covered that a bounce here from the 78.6 retracement level would have been nice because it's also the 61.8 expansion level. It's still possible that we go up from here and this becomes the first impulsive wave pattern as wave 1, wave 2, and wave 3 then over the next couple of months. But we'll have to wait and see how that turns out. Grab, yeah, still waiting for movement here as well. Here we have actually leaps for 2026. We're looking at a weekly chart here. So the big question is, are we right in the assumption that this is wave 1, 2? Auto labeling thinks it's a little different, but still same principle, and that we are actually in the progress of forming our third wave upward, which would have a profit target of around $9.40 to $10.88. So around a 200% return. Yeah, but since we're looking at a weekly chart, it's going to be quite a few episodes before we see if we are right or wrong with this one. Green wave, still same thing. We're waiting for a miracle. Makes me think of the meme with the stick figure and the stick that is like, do something. Yeah. Yeah. Thankfully, not a very big position. So even if it goes bust, so be it. Immersion. We got out of immersion. Or we still have immersion. Oh, we still have immersion. Yeah. So we still have immersion because we actually assume that might be. What's the low here? 952. That was 950. Yeah. We actually assume that this here might be the corrective pattern finished and that we here are getting our wave 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, with the development that this candle here turned red, it also becomes possible that we are actually correcting a little bit of a bigger pattern, and this is in fact 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ABC, and then we get our another 5 wave down to finish the correction. If that were to play out like this, we would probably wait for this wave 5 to finish, which should be probably around, yeah, like not probably, we could actually draw our minimum targets for that. So yeah, so that would already be minimum target. So maximum, or like, yeah, secondary target would be around 845, and then we would expect an ABC pattern upwards. And if that were to happen, we probably would get out on the ABC movement upwards, because then we would expect another 5 wave pattern down for us to re-enter better. The way it stands right now, we're just gonna hold on to this. Keep in mind that very often a 4th wave, so assuming our labeling is correct, of course, very often a 4th wave, if we use Kennedy channeling technique, will retrace to the top, median, or bottom of the base channel. Bottom not as often, but top very or reasonably often, medium also reasonably often. So right now it looks, or we actually more or less bounced around the top of the base channel. And the question will be if we break through the, what do we have here, 950 mark, or if we stay above 950. If we stay above 950, this can still be 1, 2, and we'll get wave 3, 4, 5 up to our target areas from $15 to $20 per share. If we break the 950, then this is more likely a 5 wave pattern downwards, as said, and we would then expect the correctional ABC pattern and then the next 5 waves down. Yeah, still on the weekly chart, so moving slightly sideways. We're going to wait if we turn out right here, that we'll get the break to the bottom, or if we turn out wrong and we actually break to the top. Covered this a little bit more in yesterday's, or a little bit in a bigger detail in yesterday's episode. So if you're curious, check that one out. Cause, yeah, I think considering the break that we had through here and then the immediate bounce, that we actually now finished this wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, and are currently in wave 4 downwards, where we potentially have A, B, and C. So I would expect a little bit more of a correction here, maybe to around 870, 850. And then from there, we will then form our 5th wave upwards, which means theoretically, I think if I recall correctly, they're reporting their earnings today. So it could be that we get all of that in a very, very short period of time, so that we maybe have a decline during the rest of the day, and then positive earnings that cause the 5th wave push to finish this wave 1, 2, and 3rd wave into the area of $11.50 to $12.05, roughly. Yeah, and That's the moving cause. Now, if we look at the NASDAQ, going through our usual suspects, probably going to be a relatively short episode because of that today. So there we're still on the move. Again, we're still not yet at our profit target. If we consider this our base channel, we also haven't had a breakout. We don't necessarily always need a breakout, but Kennedy channeling technique uses the breakout to identify the third wave movement. So again, I still expect that we here will see the area 20,374 to 20,700, which is not that far away anymore, surprisingly, to finish this 1, 2, 3. Then we get a wave 4, and then we get a wave 5. We have Novavax, NVIDIA, similar game plan. It's going to be tricky to decide fully. We also had similar, like in cost, the breakthrough the 2618 expansion level, and then the drop below. Now, either this is already our wave 3, so wave 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we get wave 5, which should then terminate around 134 to 139, or we are still in the progress of this first wave, which would then take us to 137 to 140, then we get a wave 4, and then we get our wave 5. Yeah, it's going to be hard to say. We're going to need a little bit more time. Overall, we still expect NVIDIA to go up further. And yeah, so even if the entry would be slightly early and then we get a corrective pattern or so, given a couple of weeks time or so, it should play out quite nicely. Now, any long position right now using Elliott Wave Theory would need to have a stop loss either at 97.15 if we assume that this is wave 1, 2, or at 90.79, because if we break 90.79, this is indeed definitely not an impulse wave up. If we break 97.15, this cannot be wave 3, 4, because wave 4 cannot go in that area. Technically, if we expect this to play out as wave 1, 2, 3, we could also pick our stop loss at 109.25. If we consider that this definitely should be an impulsive wave, because we cannot have a break into the area of wave 1 in an impulsive wave. However, if we consider the possibility that this might only be a leading diagonal, that is the first wave of wave 3, for example, or actually that's a first wave, we have the correction here, which means there is a 8% chance or probability that this will turn into a leading diagonal, in which case wave 4 could retrace into this area. So therefore the safe stop losses would be 97.15 or 19.79. On the other hand, our profit targets for the immediate third wave, as said, would be 134 to 139. Then we get a wave 4 and a wave 5, so above 140. Yeah, so entry earlier in, I don't know, a couple days ago, during the episodes when we already pointed out that potential pattern would obviously have been more lucrative in terms of risk-reward ratio, but it's still not all bad in NVIDIA. Now, SunPower, I got yesterday a notification that they actually on the 5th filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So that position, unless they restructure properly, will turn into a write-off, which is kind of a pity. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Yeah, so could be worse. I mean, it's not that it's like a huge position. Kind of a pity considering what they do, but apparently they weren't doing it well enough. So might have to look for another solar company that has better fundamentals to put a little bit money in. SPY is now approaching the profit target. We have our breakout here from the so-called base channel. As said, our first profit targets would be 566 to 572, as we already talked about somewhere here, like what's that, like 10 days ago or so. Yeah, so right now still possible in my opinion to get in for that last bit of movement, but then here I would expect a corrective wave 4, and then there would then be a potential better entry point for wave 5. So that's that. And last but not least, looking at Tesla. I think Tesla might be, I mean, we haven't everything fully analyzed, but on first glance, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which means we are currently correcting the whole thing here. And the minimum correction for that would take us to, or not minimum would be somewhere here, but the usual correction level would be actually at $67 per share. I think we have our 5 waves down here and are currently either already finished an ABC here, and now have the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that takes us at least to 67, or we have wave A and are currently forming wave B. We can see that there would still be, right now we're at the minimum target for that wave C, so A, B, C. But we would need to go a little higher. Becomes tricky because if we make a new high in quotes, although, yeah, like that fluke here is the big question. Would have to check that with other data sources if actually our top would be here or here. If that here is just a fluke, then we would have to consider that would need to be a flat correction if it makes a new high. Either way, I expect, while there temporarily might be still room upwards, I expect actually a long-term further decline to finish a big second wave in Tesla. And with that, we actually made it through it. So if there are no questions and you don't have any stocks or assets you want me to look at, then I'm going to call it a day here, and we're just going to see each other again tomorrow. And I would switch to the other camera, but I would have to do it manually, so I'm not going to do it. Hopefully I find the time to look into why Stream Deck isn't interacting with OBS anymore, because it's really like a hassle to do all of those things manually. Either way, thanks for stopping by and tuning in. I hope you were able to take something away from this live stream. Don't forget, as always, like, subscribe, enable notifications so you don't miss out on future episodes. And with that, then see you tomorrow for another episode.